David, a bright young man with dreams of lifting his mother out of poverty, finds hope in an old classmate's sudden wealth. But the path to riches comes with a dark price, an occult ritual that threatens his mind, his freedom, and his life. Trapped in a nightmare of madness and deception, David's only salvation lies in the unwavering love and faith of his mother. Will he survive the darkness and reclaim his life, or will the lure of wealth destroy him forever? Sit back, relax, and find out what happened in this wonderful story. David woke up to the soft, golden rays of the morning sun filtering through the thin curtains of their small living room. The aroma of breakfast mingled with the faint scent of prayer candles his mother kept burning daily. Victoria, his mother, was already on her knees, eyes closed, lips moving silently in devotion. "Lord, please guide my son. Lead him to the right path, open doors for him, and keep him safe," she whispered fervently. David quietly joined her, placing his hands over hers, feeling the warmth of her faith. Every morning was the same ritual, a moment of stillness, a conversation with God, and a silent vow from David to never disappoint her. David was a handsome young man, with sharp features and a calm demeanor that made people trust him instantly. Despite graduating with excellent grades, he had yet to find a job that could sustain him and his mother. Each rejection letter felt like a dagger to his dreams, but he never expressed frustration aloud. He understood the sacrifices his mother had made, raising him alone after the death of his father. Victoria, on the other hand, never stopped encouraging him. "David, God sees your efforts. Keep believing, keep striving. Your time will come," she would say, her voice soft yet filled with conviction. After breakfast, David kissed his mother and left for another day of job hunting. The streets were alive with the usual chaos, hawkers shouting their wares, vehicles honking, and people rushing to their destinations. Yet David walked with a quiet determination, whispering a small prayer under his breath. "God, I only wish to take care of my mother. Please open a way for me." Little did he know, that very day, his life would take an unexpected turn. As he walked home from a discouraging interview, a sleek, exotic car passed by, its polished surface reflecting the morning sun. David's eyes widened as he recognized the driver, Pablo, his old classmate. The man now radiated wealth and confidence, a life so different from his own struggles. Pablo waved and shouted over the car's roar, "David, meet me tomorrow at my house. I have something for you." David stood frozen, heart pounding. The words echoed in his mind as he walked the rest of the way home, excitement mingled with disbelief. How had Pablo, once an ordinary student like him, become so rich? That evening, David recounted the encounter to his mother, his voice trembling with anticipation. Victoria's eyes sparkled with hope. "Finally, my son, God has sent a helper," she whispered, her hands clasped in prayer. That night, mother and son prayed together, gratitude and expectation filling the room. David could feel a small seed of hope take root in his heart, unaware that the road ahead would test him in ways he could never imagine. The morning after his encounter with Pablo, David couldn't concentrate on anything. He brushed his teeth, prepared breakfast, and dressed carefully, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept thinking of the luxurious car, the confident smile of his old friend, and the promise of help. Finally, he summoned the courage to visit Pablo, hoping that this opportunity could be the breakthrough he had been praying for all his life. When he arrived at Pablo's mansion, David was struck speechless. The house was massive, with elegant glass windows reflecting the sunlight and a garden so manicured it seemed unreal. Pablo greeted him warmly, his smile familiar but his aura commanding. "David, come in, relax, enjoy yourself," he said, ushering him inside. The living room was lavish, with leather sofas, intricate art pieces, and shelves stacked with expensive-looking books. Pablo poured him a drink, but as usual, avoided answering David's questions about how he had achieved such wealth. Instead, he offered small gifts and money, a gesture meant to sustain David without revealing the full picture. Despite the generosity, David's curiosity and unease grew. Every time he received money, a part of him wanted to know the source, to understand the path to success. One evening, while sitting across from Pablo, David pleaded, his voice trembling with a mix of hope and desperation. "Pablo, I am tired of collecting fish from you. Teach me to fish. I am your friend, and I need your help. My mother depends on me. Please, show me the way." Pablo's face softened, a trace of sorrow appearing in his eyes. Without a word, he wrote a check for 5 million naira and handed it to David. "Take this. Set yourself up. Forget about how I earned it. Just promise me you will take care of your mother." David's eyes filled with tears, and he fell to his knees, hugging his friend in gratitude. "Thank you, Pablo. God bless you. I will never forget this," he whispered. Yet, a shadow of doubt lingered in his mind. Pablo seemed almost secretive, as though a storm brewed beneath his calm exterior. That night, David lay awake, clutching the check and imagining the future. He didn't yet know that the path to wealth would demand a price beyond his comprehension, a journey that would challenge his mind, body, and soul in ways he could never have anticipated. The following day, Pablo instructed David to accompany him on a journey far beyond the city limits, deep into a dense forest. The path was narrow, lined with ancient trees whose twisted branches blocked out most of the sunlight. David felt a strange mix of excitement and fear as they walked, the sounds of birds and distant rustling adding an eerie undertone. Finally, they reached a secluded clearing where a shrine stood, adorned with strange symbols and relics that made David's heart race. An old man, the occultist, stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, his presence overwhelming, and David felt an immediate chill. "What do you want, young man?" he demanded. David swallowed hard and replied, "I want wealth. I want to take care of my mother. I am ready to do whatever it takes." The man studied him silently, then spoke slowly, each word cutting through the heavy air. "You will have wealth beyond measure, but you will live only 35 years. You must endure madness for 1 year, and abstain from water for 7 days. Only then will your desire be fulfilled." David froze. His mind spun, a torrent of fear and disbelief crashing through him. How could he agree to such a thing? The thought of madness and suffering for a whole year terrified him. Yet, the vision of providing for his mother and lifting her out of poverty lingered like a distant beacon of hope. He tried to refuse, but Pablo's firm grip on his shoulder reminded him that the path had already been set. "There is no turning back now, David. Trust me, I will guide you through it," Pablo said calmly. That night, David lay awake in his small room, staring at the ceiling, heart racing. His dreams of wealth and providing for his mother now carried a heavy burden. The forest, the shrine, and the occultist's words replayed in his mind. Yet, underneath the fear, a tiny flame of determination glimmered. He loved his mother dearly and was willing to endure unimaginable suffering for her. Little did he know, this choice would change every aspect of his life, testing not only his body and mind but his very soul. The morning after the forest visit, David approached his mother with a brave, forced smile. "Mom, I got a job. I will be leaving in 7 days," he said. Victoria's eyes sparkled with joy, a mix of relief and gratitude flooding her features. "Finally, David, God is faithful," she exclaimed, embracing him tightly. David hugged her back, hiding the storm of fear and anticipation brewing in his heart. He knew that the next week would mark the beginning of his trial, a test unlike any he had faced before. Over the following 7 days, David adhered to the occultist's bizarre instructions. He abstained from water entirely, drinking only juice and soft drinks. The task, though strange, was manageable at first. Victoria, however, noticed his avoidance of water and asked, concerned, "David, why aren't you drinking water?" He smiled faintly and replied, "I prefer juice today, Mum," masking his growing discomfort. Each day, the ritual weighed more heavily on him, yet thoughts of his mother kept him going. By the sixth day, the strain became overwhelming. During the meal, David began to choke on a piece of meat. In a frantic attempt to save him, Victoria forced water into his mouth. Within moments, David's eyes widened, his movements became erratic, and he screamed incoherently. Victoria's heart shattered. Her beloved son, once bright and composed, now writhed in terror and madness. She immediately called Pablo, desperation in her voice. "Please come. I don't know what is happening to David," she cried. Pablo arrived swiftly, calm and composed. He lifted David in his arms and carried him away, leaving Victoria in anguish and fear. David awoke in an unfamiliar room, chains binding his wrists and ankles to a cold metal frame. Panic surged through him as he struggled against the restraints. His mind was clouded, flashes of the forest shrine, the occultist, and Pablo's words mingling with fear. He tried to call out, but his voice came out hoarse, almost strangled. Just then, Pablo entered, calm and composed as always. "David, relax," he said gently. "What you're experiencing is part of the process. Your madness must fully take hold before you can emerge wealthy and free." David's heart raced. "Madness? Wealth? Pablo, what have you done?" His voice was a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. Pablo sighed and explained that David's suffering was a necessary step in the ritual, a step that would shape his body, mind, and spirit. David's mind struggled to comprehend the situation. How could wealth require so much suffering, such madness, and isolation? Yet he knew, deep down, that he had already walked into this path voluntarily, seeking a life for his mother. Days turned into weeks, and David's world became a haze of confusion. Sometimes he barely recognized himself in the mirror. Other times he barely understood where reality ended and hallucination began. Pablo monitored him silently, intervening only when David's condition threatened to become dangerous. Victoria, unaware of the exact circumstances, prayed tirelessly, sending waves of faith and hope to protect her son. David often wondered if he had made the right choice. He remembered his mother's sacrifices, her prayers, and her unwavering love, which were now his guiding lights. Even in the throes of madness, he clung to the hope that he could survive, endure, and ultimately emerge victorious. The path was cruel, dark, and exhausting, but David was determined to prove that love for his mother was stronger than any trial. Months passed, and David's madness deepened. Chains clanked against the floor, echoing through the otherwise silent compound. His screams, incoherent and desperate, became a constant background sound, blending with the distant winds and occasional animal cries outside. Each day was a battle, against hunger, thirst, hallucinations, and the unbearable weight of solitude. Pablo appeared only when necessary, giving food, monitoring his health, but never explaining what the future held. Victoria's concern grew unbearable. Days without news from her son filled her with dread. She gathered a group of prayer warriors and her pastor, determined to rescue David no matter the cost. "I will not allow my son to suffer any longer. God, lead us," she prayed aloud, her voice trembling but firm. Together, they traveled to Pablo's mansion, unaware of the dangers within. The gateman refused to let them in, citing Pablo's strict orders. But Victoria's faith would not be denied. "In the name of Jesus, this gate will open, and I will see my son," she declared. Inside, David's mind, though clouded, sensed something different. Voices, familiar, strong, filled with love, reached him through the fog. The warmth of hope pierced the darkness. For the first time in months, he felt his mother's presence, felt the power of prayer surrounding him. His heart, though fragile, began to respond. Somewhere beyond the chains and the madness, a lifeline had appeared, connecting him back to the world he had feared lost forever. The gateman tried to resist, citing Pablo's orders, but the combined force of prayer and conviction was unstoppable. Doors creaked and gates shook as the group advanced, chanting fervent prayers. Inside, David's chains rattled as he stirred, sensing the arrival of something powerful and familiar. The fog of madness began to lift, replaced by a flicker of hope he had thought lost forever. Victoria reached her son, throwing herself onto him with tears streaming. "David, my son, I have come for you," she cried. David, barely recognizing her at first, blinked through the haze. "Mom, is it really you?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The prayer warriors continued their chants, filling the room with an unearthly light. Slowly, David's mind began to return, memories of his sanity and identity creeping back into focus. Pablo arrived too late, witnessing the scene unravel. His meticulously controlled plan, meant to ensure David's suffering for the ritual, collapsed before the overwhelming force of love and faith. Victoria held her son tightly, feeling the weight of 11 months of pain lift with each breath of prayer. David's freedom, though incomplete, was finally within reach. Chains clattered to the floor as the prayer warriors moved with determination, cutting through the bindings that held David captive. His body, frail from months of neglect and madness, collapsed into his mother's arms. "Mom, I was trapped? I was gone. He could not finish the sentence, tears streaming down his face. Victoria held him tighter, whispering words of reassurance and love. The ritual-induced madness that had plagued him for nearly a year began to fade. Each prayer, each touch, each word of comfort acted as a balm to his soul. David slowly regained control of his thoughts, breathing deeply, feeling the warmth of his mother's love fill the void left by months of isolation and torment. For the first time in almost a year, he felt truly alive. Pablo's presence was now irrelevant. The power of faith, determination, and love had undone everything he had orchestrated. Victoria looked him in the eye, calm yet firm. "This ends now. My son belongs to me, and God is greater than your schemes," she declared. David, finally aware of the danger he had endured, nodded silently. Though he was still weak, his spirit was renewed, and his heart overflowed with gratitude for the miracle of rescue. David's recovery was slow but steady. His body had suffered greatly, and his mind had been tested to its limits. Yet, with Victoria's constant care, prayer, and love, he began to regain strength. Each day, he relearned small tasks: walking without assistance, eating without fear, and speaking coherently. The trauma lingered, but the sense of freedom and safety slowly replaced the despair he had lived with for months. Victoria never left his side. She prayed over him, comforted him, and reminded him of his resilience. "David, you survived what most could not. God's hand was on you the entire time," she whispered one evening. David, though shaken, smiled faintly. He understood the gravity of the ordeal he had endured. The wealth he had sought seemed insignificant compared to the miracle of life and the love of his mother. David's experiences began to shape a new purpose within him. He wanted to use his story to warn others, to educate young men and women about the dangers of shortcuts, greed, and secrecy. The ordeal had changed him deeply, making him wise beyond his years. Though the shadow of Pablo and the occult lingered, David was determined to rise above it, reclaiming his life one day at a time. With his mind and body slowly recovering, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that wealth obtained through nefarious means was worthless if it cost life, sanity, or morality. Determined to change his life the right way, he applied to reputable companies, attended interviews, and networked with honesty and integrity. Every small success became a stepping stone toward a stable future, a future built on trust, perseverance, and faith. Victoria observed this transformation with pride. Her son, once fragile and broken, now carried himself with dignity and wisdom. She reminded him daily, "David, wealth is meaningless if it destroys the soul. Faith and integrity will lead you to true abundance." David listened attentively, internalizing her words, understanding that the lessons learned during his ordeal were far more valuable than any sum of money. David also began speaking publicly, sharing his story with small groups and community gatherings. He warned about the dangers of greed, desperation, and the allure of forbidden shortcuts. Each time he recounted the ordeal, he felt a sense of catharsis. The once traumatic experience became a tool to help others avoid similar fates, transforming his suffering into purpose. Months passed, and David finally secured a stable job, one that paid modestly but offered security and dignity. It was nothing like the wealth promised by Pablo's ritual, but it was honest, and it brought him satisfaction. He rented a small apartment near his mother, ensuring she would never want for anything. For the first time, he felt a sense of normalcy, stability, and hope for the future. Victoria watched her son with joy and relief. The boy who had endured almost a year of torment was now strong, wise, and compassionate. She continued her prayers, now more in gratitude than desperation, thanking God for sparing her son and guiding him back to the path of light. David, too, felt a newfound sense of appreciation for life, understanding the importance of patience, prayer, and moral integrity. David also began rebuilding relationships with friends and extended family, sharing his story cautiously but with a focus on lessons learned. He became a mentor and guide, particularly to young men and women facing challenges in life. His experiences, though harrowing, had made him a source of inspiration, a living testament that love, faith, and perseverance could overcome even the darkest trials. David's life slowly returned to rhythm and normalcy. Each morning, he woke with gratitude, appreciating the chance to live a life free from the torment that had dominated the previous year. His new job, modest yet fulfilling, gave him both independence and a sense of purpose. Every day, he reminded himself that the wealth Pablo had offered came at an unbearable cost, one he was lucky to escape. Victoria continued to pray for him, though now her prayers carried words of thanksgiving. The community took notice of David's return. Stories of his ordeal circulated quietly, with whispers of the mysterious wealth he had refused to claim, and the madness he had endured. People admired his courage and resilience. David, humble yet confident, never flaunted his survival. He simply lived each day with integrity, letting his actions speak. He understood that true power did not lie in riches but in faith, patience, and love. David also began reflecting on the fragility of life. The near loss of his sanity and the torment of his months in chains had left a permanent mark on his psyche. Yet, rather than fear, he chose wisdom. He became disciplined in his work, prudent in his decisions, and deliberate in his relationships. He learned to value patience, to respect the slow unfolding of life, and to cherish every moment with his mother. Victoria, watching her son blossom, often whispered prayers of gratitude, thanking God for sparing him and guiding him back to the light. The bond between mother and son grew stronger. Every shared meal, every prayer, every quiet conversation reinforced their connection. David began to understand that his journey through darkness was not just a trial but a lesson. A lesson about the cost of greed, the danger of shortcuts, and the unmatched strength of faith and love. Each day, he felt the warmth of true wealth, peace of mind, love, and moral clarity. David's recovery extended beyond the physical and mental, it reached the heart. The emotional scars from Pablo's manipulation remained, but David was determined not to let bitterness dominate his life. He spoke openly to Victoria, confessing his fears, his pain, and his regrets. Each conversation with his mother brought clarity, solace, and emotional release. Her unwavering support helped him understand the true value of life and the power of forgiveness. Though the memories of captivity sometimes haunted his dreams, David learned to face them with courage. He wrote down his experiences not to dwell on them, but to transform pain into purpose. Each recollection of fear and suffering became a lesson, a story he could share to guide others. The boy who had once chased wealth at any cost had grown into a young man who understood the profound meaning of sacrifice, morality, and resilience. Victoria also encouraged David to engage in the community. He began helping struggling youths, sharing his experiences with honesty, warning them about the dangers of temptation and greed. His story became a source of inspiration, a testimony that life could be rebuilt even after unimaginable suffering. Through mentoring, David discovered a sense of fulfillment deeper than any material wealth could offer. Together, mother and son began rebuilding not just their lives, but their spirits. Every evening was filled with prayers, reflections, and gratitude. Victoria often reminded David, "The wealth you almost gained could have destroyed you. But what you have now, life, wisdom, faith, is priceless." David embraced this truth, understanding that his journey through darkness had prepared him for a life of purpose, integrity, and genuine fulfillment. True wealth is not measured by money or power, but by faith, love, and integrity. Shortcuts and dark paths may promise riches, but they come at a devastating cost. Patience, perseverance, and moral courage are the real keys to a life of purpose and lasting fulfillment. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Share your thoughts about this story in the comment section because I will love to read them. And guess what? I have more amazing stories coming soon. So, like, share and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and stay glued to Folktales by Zida. See you around.